Hi, Congressman Tracy Mann. Welcome to my Washington, D.C. office. For those of you that are on Facebook Live or joining us from your screen, we also have a lot of people that are joining us from their phone as well. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we are having a special event tonight, a Tele-Townhall that we've never done anything quite like this before. We're really excited about it. We're broadcasting a live video of tonight's meeting. If you like to watch the Tele-Townhall, go to my Facebook page or visit my website, man.house.gov/live, and you can join that way. As your representative, I sit on the Veterans Affairs Committee and really delighted to get to do that. I believe strongly that we've got to do a great job as a country caring for our veterans. And I've invited two veterans who are also classmates of mine and Republican members of the House to join me. We have Congressman Pflueger and Congresswoman Mariannette Miller-Meeks joining us tonight. They're both veterans. Delighted to have them. Congressman Pflueger represents West Texas, Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, a lot of oil, a lot of agriculture. Do they still play football down there? I think they do on Friday nights once in a while. And he was a Raptor pilot, served in the Air Force went to the Air Force Academy, served in the Air Force for 20 years. Him and his wife, Camille, and their 3 daughters live in San Angelo, and is on a lot of committees, including the Homeland Security Committee. And also we have with us Congresswoman Mariannette Miller-Meeks from Southeast Iowa. Kansans, we kind of wish that it rained in our state like you all get. So we actually need crop insurance in the big first. But Mariannette was in the Army for 24 years. Is that right? Years. Her husband, Kurt, was in the Army for 30 years. They've raised 2 daughters. Her district is Southeast Iowa. That includes the University of Iowa.
Yes, it does. Go Hogs.
And believe it or not, so Mariannette won her race. It was a Democrat seat. She flipped a seat by a whopping 6 votes. Out of how many total cast?
Almost 400,000.
400,000 votes, 6 votes. So if you ever wonder if your vote matters, it certainly does. Did in your race. It matters to all of us. So we'll just dive into a few questions. We want to respect their time. We'll start with you, August, if you would. Basically, how would you say your 2 decades of service, flying the Raptor all over the world, how does that affect your first year in Congress? How you look at issues?
Well, Tracy, if I can start by saying thanks for having me. And to everyone that's on the line, you have a phenomenal representative. Representative Mann is just the utmost character, integrity, and takes his job very seriously. And I've learned a lot by serving with him, and especially when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to the issues that we both share. Like you mentioned, I have a district that has a tremendous amount of agriculture, and I appreciate your service, not only to your district, but to the country, and being a leading voice for what we need in order to get this country back on track. I would say that serving in the Air Force and being a part of the greatest team in the world, which is our U.S. military, it really sharpened, I think, my skills to be able to come to Congress, to work with people like Dr. Miller-Meeks, yourself, and so many others that care about this country deeply. And this isn't about any of us individually, as you have demonstrated in your service before you got here and now. It's about the country. It's about serving the flag. It's the greatest country in the world. And being a veteran, it's such a joy to be here and to take that service a little bit further here.
It's fun for me to see, 2 veterans that obviously served their country on the battlefield in the Army and the Air Force, now serving it in Congress. How many veterans do we have in the Congress today? John, top of your head, probably.
It's a great question. We were at a low point just a little over 2 years ago, and now we're starting to gain momentum, and we have a lot of veterans, a lot of women, a lot of minority folks that are joining Congress and serving in such a great way,
which is a great thing. So I know you have an unusual background because you have a medical background as well. So it's actually Dr. Mariannette Miller-Meeks. So she was a nurse and then was a doctor in the Army, and then you also were in charge of the Iowa Medical Society, right? And also was in charge of the Iowa Department of Health. So interesting. So what is your take on the vaccine mandate? As you see it, as a veteran, but then your role in public policy and mandates. Any thoughts on that?
Well, first I'm going to echo August. And so I serve on Veterans Affairs with your Congressman, Representative Tracy Mann. And let me just tell you, on Veterans Affairs, he's always on target. He's always prepared. He always has great questions. And you can tell that he is looking out to serve our veterans and also our active duty military, who then become veterans. So it is a pleasure and an honor to serve with your congressman. He's diligent. He is highest character, highest integrity. And he really embodies those things which August and I think embody the military and our great armed forces. And he also has a background, which one of the reasons I ran for Congress was to preserve the American dream. And Tracy, if I can call him Tracy, Tracy does that. So we're here fighting for you every day. And I'm just going to tell you, you have a stellar congressman that you have put into office, and it's really humbling to serve with him. And so I think having a background in both medicine, so I was in nursing, and then I was a physician as I worked myself through school to become a doctor. And then I served as the director of the Iowa Department of Public Health. And I'm going to be very candid. I'm fully vaccinated. I did vaccine clinics in all 24 of my counties. I have talked with people young and old, different ethnic groups, different social classes about the vaccines, the risks and the benefits. And I have long said that I'm not for a vaccine mandate. I don't, I think this shaming of people, this pitting people between vaccinated and unvaccinated, denigrating people, whether they're vaccinated or not, I think that creates so much more division. And one of the things that's been very frustrating as a physician and a public health official is that there's not this recognition of infection-acquired immunity or natural immunity as there is for almost every single other disease that we have. And I've questioned Dr. Fauci on this, Dr. Walensky on this. We just had another coronavirus select subcommittee task force meeting today. I asked the same question, and last week I asked the same question. And it's extremely frustrating. And when you as a medical professional can't get an honest answer from other medical professionals or the CDC about natural immunity or infection-acquired immunity, then that just leads people to believe in conspiracy theories and something else going on. And are they supporting big pharma? And so I think we have created this dynamic where we have created more distrust in our institutions. And really, when it comes to the CDC and public health, we need to have trust in those institutions because they're to protect us and keep us safe. So we need more transparency from the CDC. We should not have a vaccine mandate, but I'm more than happy with Tracy to talk with anybody about the vaccines if they have questions. You should be having those conversations with your doctor and your healthcare provider.
One thing I appreciate, being a doctor and with your background with medical, with public health, public policy, you have a unique ability to speak into this issue with authority, and really glad that you take the position you do and speak as loudly as you do. If you'd like to ask me a question, press *3 now to get in the queue. Also, if you'd like to watch live video of tonight's meeting, visit our Facebook page or my website, man.house.gov/live. Quick question for August. I know August has to go to do another town hall, Tele-Townhall hall for your district tonight, I believe. But August, what do you think are some misconceptions about the veteran community that you see that people display? And what kind of role do you think we as members of Congress, as well as veterans watching or listening, can play in kind of dispelling some misconceptions that might be out there?
Well, I think the work that President Trump started a few years ago to really focus on veterans, their health, their mental health, reshaping and reforming the Veterans Affairs Bureau, really something that I saw you, Tracy, meeting with the new VA Secretary, McDonough, and getting to know him. And I think one of the misconceptions is that veterans are 100% taken care of right now, and we know that that's not true. And we really need to focus as a country to make sure that every veteran is taken care of, that their families are supported, and that we do the right thing. And I would just say, as we just came off of Veterans Day, it's very important that we continue to honor the legacy of what veterans do in our districts to make sure that, especially Vietnam veterans, that we as a country, that we give them the respect and the dignity, and that we award them the appropriate decorations that they need, because their service, it mattered. What they fought for mattered. I know that I appreciate that. You and Audrey and your family have done a wonderful job of demonstrating that love and that respect for our veterans. Thanks for leading on this subject, because it's personal to my family and I, and we appreciate your leadership on it.
And it's a huge issue. And if you're a veteran out there, by the way, that you're at a tough spot, or if you have a family member who's a veteran, or a loved one that might be struggling, please know that you're not alone. The Veterans Crisis Hotline is open 24/7 on the VA committee. We've been looking at making sure that's properly funded, also to make sure that people receiving those calls are properly trained. Call 1-800-273-8255, or you can text at any time 838-255, or just Google, Veterans Crisis Line. And so make sure that if you're at a bad spot or need help, that you're reaching out and getting the help that you need. So I think you got to head to your town hall, I think, August. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate your service. So
Next time, dress up when you come to a
I
town.
will try that. And thank you to the folks in Kansas for the support that you show. Mann family, you've got a great representative. We're lucky to serve with him. And Dr. Meeks, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Yeah, thanks. Have a great rest of the night. Appreciate it. So, a quick question for you, Dr. Meeks. Your Veterans Justice Outreach Improvement Act. Explain to veterans in Kansas kind of what that's about, where it's at right now, and what you're excited about.
So, people in Kansas may be familiar with drug courts or family courts. There are mechanisms by which to help people through the court system and to stay out of jail. So we know that there are veterans that experience homelessness. There are veterans that are in tough circumstances. They may get involved in the criminal justice system. And so the Veterans Justice Outreach Program is a way to get them assistance and help to guide them and help prevent them from getting into circumstances which end up leading to them being incarcerated. We know veterans suffer with mental health conditions. We discussed that just a minute ago with Representative Pflueger, and you've discussed it as well. So PTSD, mental health conditions, suicide prevention, actions and activities that can get them involved in the criminal justice system. And this is a way to, help circumvent that by getting the outreach, getting them, into a hospital system if they're suffering, or to a mental health, to a counselor or a psychiatrist, or to the Veterans Crisis Line, as you just mentioned. And then there are some veterans who are, very concerned about the VA system. And so as the Mission Act allows them to receive care in the community, getting them to community-based care if that's available, or, through telehealth or telemedicine. So it's a good bill. It passed through our committee, and you were part of that with us.
It sailed through committee, and
so we're hoping that it'll pass all the way through.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences in Congress, but the Veterans Affairs Committee is still one of the more bipartisan committees, and especially when there's a good idea that somebody comes forward with, Republican or Democrat. Typically, it seems like both sides get on board and push it forward, and that's important. And I think that should make veterans pleased. So, time for a quick question. So, we have Derek, who's reaching out from Syracuse. So, Syracuse is in southwest Kansas. Okay. It's about 15 miles from Colorado and about 60 miles from Oklahoma. So, you're far southwest Kansas. The question is, and the question came through our website, what is Congress doing to curb veteran homelessness? And I can maybe start, and then you can jump in. So, I actually introduced, and Dr. Mariannette Miller-Meeks was helpful in this as well, the Veterans Homeless Act. Basically, and so there's multiple things that are happening in this arena, but basically streamlining the process and getting rid of a lot of regulations. So the program would work this way. If there's a veteran who has a VA home loan and they default on it, we were able to lift a lot of the regulations around that to make it easier for the VA to then get that home placed with a homeless veteran as they try to get on their feet. Kind of a common sense thing passed early on. The first piece of legislation I really worked on, and it has passed. We're pleased about that. We also, just last week, I sponsored legislation along with Congressman Pappas from New Jersey, Democrat, and then on the Senate side, Senator Manchin from West Virginia, and our Senator Jerry Moran, to really help to make sure that that all states, including Kansas, have a veterans homelessness program. Which is something I'm very passionate about. And you look at it, some states have this, some states don't. This bill would direct the VA to make sure that appropriate programs are in place, and what are the programs in place in every state, because they do vary from state to state. So anything from your perspective on veterans homelessness?
Well, outside of bills, and Tracy, your congressman, has been very active in this endeavor, and he's very smart to work with members on the other side of the aisle, especially when you're in a minority, in order to get very important legislation passed. But he's also very active in making sure that veterans get their proper pensions or disabilities. So these things occur within the district, within Kansas, to make sure that they have proper compensation, proper disability benefits, proper health care. And we mentioned mental health. And so part of homelessness may be substance use disorder, or maybe PTSD, or maybe a mental health condition. And so treating those conditions and make sure there's access to services can also help prevent homelessness. And then we've both been very active on job creation for veterans. So we have several bills on both educational benefits, extending the GI Bill benefits that were, some veterans had, they have a time expiration for their GI Bill benefits. They were in school, their university paused, their benefits expired. And so this is a way that their benefits could be continued. So you were helpful in those bills, ones for disabled, and then the Vet Tech program, which is a computer technology program, 6 months, which has led to over 2,000 jobs at above 57,000. And Tracy was very helpful in all of those bills. So job creation, which helps with homelessness, and then also treatment of mental health and substance use disorder.
Which is huge for our veterans all over the country. So again, if you'd like to ask a question to get in the queue, press *3 now to watch the live video of tonight's meeting. Visit my Facebook page or our website, man.house.gov/live. I'll ask you one more question. I'll let you go. I know you're very busy, but as a veteran, as a doctor, now as a member of Congress, how do you think we're doing with veterans health care overall? Do you think we've made improvements the last few years? What are the big areas of need or concern as you see it?
Yeah, I think that, and you probably saw this, and it may have been one of the impetuses for you running for Congress, and that was several years ago. We saw long waiting lines at the VA hospitals. We saw patients that were triaged from care. We saw patients, veterans who were dying while they were waiting for care. And there was specific VA hospitals where this was true. I toured our VA hospital in Iowa City, and I think that you've done the same things. And President Trump, under his administration, really looked at not just how care was received, but the regulations on to getting into care, how rapidly claims were processed. But even more than that, having the ability to hold leaders of VA hospitals and the VA administration accountable for behavior, for how they ran a hospital. And I think that was very important. So prior to that, people weren't held accountable if there were egregious actions, if there was treating or untimely waits for care. And then the other thing they instituted was Veterans Choice and then the Mission Act. And so Veterans Choice allowed a veteran to receive care at a community facility if there was, number one, if there was a long waiting list, or number two, if they were greater than 40 miles from their residence. And this is very important. And when you think about it, our military force is now comprised of active duty, then National Guard, and reservists. And this happened as the peace dividend of the Cold War ending. So instead of having a large active duty footprint, we have temporary service members, if you will. And those service members, when they're deployed, think about the global war on terror for 20 years. Many of these service members have been deployed numerous times. And when they exit and transition out of active duty back to their home, they go to a home. They don't go to a military base. So having access to care, be it mental health treatment, be it physical treatment, having access to care in your community can be very important for them to maintain a job, maintain their families, have less undue travel. There are some things that the VA hospitals do just tremendously well, and that's especially in the role of prosthetics. But then there are other things that you can have access to in the community. And if you're a person that was National Guard or reservist, that can be very important to you.
Yeah, great, wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your service.
I'm just going to say again, you all have a great congressman, so take very good care of him, and we're looking forward to continue to work with him on Veterans Affairs.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Doctor. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, well, we have a poll coming up here. And the poll says, which of the following programs would you like to see Congress improve for veterans? So there's 4 options here, and I'll read back through them. So which of the following programs would you like to see Congress improve for our veterans? Number 1, healthcare and physical health programs. Number 2, mental health resources. Number 3, homelessness assistance. And number 4, assimilation back into civilian life initiative. So again, what should we improve on? Number 1, healthcare and physical health programs. 2, press 2 for mental health resources. Press 3 for homelessness assistance. Press 4 for assimilation back into civilian life initiatives. If you're just now joining us, this is Congressman Tracy Mann from the Big First District in Kansas. I'm in my Washington, D.C. office tonight, taking your questions now. So press *3 to get in the queue and ask any question. We have a question came in on our website from Christy up in Norton. I hope you're doing well tonight, Christy. Question is, any update on our withdrawal of our U.S. troops from Afghanistan? I really appreciate the question. I'll tell you, what we saw happen in August was infuriating to me. And I'm not for endless wars, but the way that we left, the lack of planning, the American troops that lost their life, the Americans that we left behind. This was absolutely unacceptable. Still makes me angry to think about, talk about. And the administration said things that simply weren't true. Like we've gotten everybody out that wants to get out. We know when they left, there were at least a couple hundred Americans that were stranded in Afghanistan. And that's just not something we as a country do. We don't leave people behind. Very bad for the morale of our troops, very bad for the morale of our country, very bad for our standing in the world. I don't think we ever should have left the Bagram Air Force Base, so it's infuriating to me. For every day or practically every day, we send out social media or a post saying the number of days since we've left Americans behind. And, that started on September the 1st. So we're approaching, 75 days. We continue to ask the Biden administration questions. Frankly, many times they dodge the answers or they don't give us an answer. They still can't account for the equipment that we've left behind. And in many ways, worst of all, the real winner in all of this is not only the Taliban, but China, who actually shares a small border with Afghanistan. They now are swooping in and are increasing their influence in the world. So a complete debacle, completely rest at the feet of President Biden for this horrible decision. I hope the Republicans can win back the House here next year and we can have hearings and really call people to account as we should for what's happened. So I appreciate the question, Christy. If you want to ask me a question, again, about anything veterans related or just what's going on in Washington, D.C., press *3 now. Also, if you'd like to receive our updates, from our office, we send regular updates on what's happening on the floor of the House, what's happening with various pieces of legislation, large policies. At any time, press *6, and we can get your information, and then you can join back into the call. So *3 to get in the queue to ask a question, or *6 to sign up for our newsletter. A lot's happening legislatively even this week. So the Build Back Better called regulation, or the BBB, I think that stands for bad, because it's horrible public policy. It could be voted on as early as the next day or two. It's $1.75 trillion at least. I think when the truth comes out about this bill and all the programs it starts and all the spending, could easily be closer to $4 trillion than $1.75 trillion. Strongly opposed it. Spoke out on the House floor about it here yesterday, and a lot going on. We have a phone call, so we're going to go to a phone caller, Calvin in Manhattan. Calvin, how are you doing this evening? Are you there, Calvin?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good. How can I help you tonight? So I was in Manhattan last week, Veterans Day. Went to Manhattan. You have that parade down Point, so it was really great to be part of the parade. Then there was the community veteran celebration around noon that I spoke at. It was really great to get to be part of that and recognize some of our Manhattan veterans. And then later that day, toured Katie's Way, which is doing a lot to help mental health issues for veterans in Manhattan. But how can I help you here tonight, Calvin?
Yes, my question for the audience tonight is, what is being done for veterans who have a trade skill but haven't been given a certification for it?
Yep. Great question. That's something actually that I am working on and leading into. And I think, Calvin, that we have a lot of work that we need to do to help transition, soldiers from, the certification or the skills that our soldiers have to the private sector to workforce. I worked on actually with the state legislature, encouraged them and prompted them to pass a state licensure bill that makes some of those things easier. It somewhat depends on the industry that someone was in and how easy that is. I think that that's an area that we have a lot of work that we could do, need to do to make that licensure better and easier for our veterans. So in fact, I was just, we had some experts, in my office here last week. I'm talking about that very issue. So more work to do. I'd say it depends on the specific industry and the specific skill, but it's something we most definitely are working on and focused on. So again, to ask a question, hit *3 to get in the queue, or *6 to join our newsletter. We have another caller. We have Billy from Emporia. How are you this evening, Billy? Is Billy on the line?
All right, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, for one thing, real quick before your question, Billy, it's important for people in the Big First to realize we have a legacy of recognizing our veterans. So, Veterans Day actually started in Emporia, and the congressman from Emporia back in the 1950s, Congressman Reese, went to Washington, D.C. after that, and he submitted the legislation to make Veterans Day a national holiday, and that was signed into law by none other than the Big First's own Dwight D. Eisenhower. So a strong legacy in the Big First of recognizing veterans that I think is important. What's your question here this evening, Billy?
Well, Mr. Mann, I'm in agriculture. I served in the reserve, I deployed overseas. I've come home, and buying land is not an easy task. I've got a lot of my brothers and sisters come up active duty and attempt to get into farming, but they can't afford the 30% down payment. They go to the USDA. Their credit's too good to get a USDA loan, so they get a conventional loan. The down payment's just too big. It's something I've talked with a lot of people about over the years. Why can't we have a VA type system for those soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines wanting to get into agriculture when they are done, finish their time? It's a field we need people in. I mean, everything from beekeeping to growing, oranges in Florida.
Boy, that's a great question. First off, thanks for your service, Billy. And this is also, so I'm on the House Ag Committee and I'm on the Veterans Affairs Committee. So in your question, you're kind of merging two passions of mine. There are some farm loan programs that are out there that offer loans to help veteran farmers and ranchers to get financing. I'm not sure, and I can find out what the down payments there are. We have your number, Billy. If you don't mind, we'll give you a call. Someone in our office will give you a call tomorrow and really talk through the programs that are out there and make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned, and happy to really look at if there are other ways that we can help veterans that want to get started in agriculture. There's a program in Manhattan or near Manhattan called the Save Farm, which is training veterans to join agriculture, production agriculture, beekeeping, and other things as well. So very much appreciate the question, Billy, and we'll make sure that you get a call tomorrow to make sure that you know of everything that's out there that potentially help. So really appreciate it. Hey, we have the results of our poll. The poll we asked earlier, we asked which of the following programs would you like to see Congress improve for veterans? The number, they're actually pretty, they were all four fairly close, but the winner was the number 4, assimilation back into civilian life initiatives. Kind of what you're talking about, Billy, and that's 30%. Coming in number 2nd is mental health resources at 26%. And then at 22%, healthcare and physical health programs, and also at 22% is homelessness assistance. So, definitely some good initiatives there and some great feedback. So next up, we have a caller. We have Justin calling in from Garden City. How are you this evening, Justin? Are you patched into the line, Justin? If not, we have your number, Justin. We can make sure that we're able to reach out to you here tomorrow and answer any question. By the way, if you're a veteran or if you're not a veteran on this call, one thing our offices do is we do what's called casework, which means if you're having issues with your VA benefits or with the IRS or Social Security or Medicare or whatever, we can't always move mountains, but we often have numbers and some resources that we can bring to bear to prompt responses and to move the process along. And a lot of that we do out of our local offices. So we have an office in Dodge City, and we also have an office in Manhattan, and of course our Washington, D.C. office. I live in Salina as well. So never hesitate to reach out to our offices if we can help you with casework or anything like that. You also can email us at any time as well. So on the website, we got a question from Sarah from Goodland, and Sarah's concerned with the supply chain. And I really appreciate the question, Sarah. I share your concern. And, there's some things that we can do. There's also a lot of things we shouldn't be doing. And I'll tell you, the first 2 things is we can improve the supply chain situation right away by lifting these vaccine mandates. That will do nothing but further weaken our supply chains, number 1. And then number 2, when we are paying people more to stay at home than return to their job, that only further exacerbates or makes our supply chain problems worse. So those are 2 things we shouldn't be doing. A lot of things we should be doing. So I actually introduced last week, it's called the Transport Act. And basically what it does, there's a lot of problems here. Part of the problem is we are getting goods into our ports. Many times we have issues offloading them, but once those containers are offloaded, then we don't have the trucks to get them away from the port inland into Kansas to go to our manufacturers, our ag producers, the people that need them. The Transport Act, what it does is it decreases regulation. So part of the problem is because of, frankly, the California trucking regulations, you can't drive a Kansas truck that's older than 2011. So if it's older than 10 years into California. And so what the Transport Act would do is it would force California and other high regulation states to loosen those regulations in times of extreme congestion like what we have now, so that Kansas truckers could go into these states, grab the containers, bring them back home. It's common sense. Makes sense. We've had a lot of sponsors, a lot of momentum right there. So I think there's a lot of common sense approaches, some things we could do to decrease regulations. That's an example. Share the concerns. And unfortunately, with the Biden administration's current policies, I don't see that changing anytime soon. So we've got to take positive actions if we're ever going to get these supply chains loosened up here moving forward. So appreciate the question. Again, if you want to ask me a question about what's going on here in DC, press *3 now. Also, again, if you'd like to get our updates for our newsletter, hit *6. We can get your information, and then you can rejoin the call. Next up, we have a phone call. We have Randy calling in from Salina. How are you this evening, Randy?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. How can I help you tonight?
I just got a question. I have been diagnosed with PTSD and depression and, I don't know, 9 other things that I don't understand. I'm just wondering what they're doing to help with that aspect of the veterans, because I know I'm not the only veteran that has been diagnosed with it, but I get no benefits for having it, I guess, or no payment for having it.
Yeah. No, appreciate the question. Something I think about a lot, the mental health of our veterans. And thank you for your service to our country. I live in Salina as well. And so thank you to your service for our country. I think, frankly, we need to be doing more as a nation to care for the mental health aspect for our veterans. I was in Manhattan last week and went to this place called Katie's Way, where they're doing a lot of specific brainwave treatments and are seeing a lot of positive results helping veterans with mental health, with PTSD. I was encouraged by that. We have your number. We'll have somebody give you a call tomorrow and make sure that that there's no programs or opportunities for you to get some care that's not being left undone. So you'll look for a call from someone in our office tomorrow on that. And again, appreciate your service to the country. From a legislative standpoint, frankly, I feel like we need to be doing more, and appreciate the phone call. So next up, we have Grace ask a question from Russell via our website. And Grace is concerned with the southern border crisis. And so I appreciate the question. Grace, I share your concerns. So the nation just released in the last couple of days the number of illegal apprehensions for the month of October, all-time record. I think it was 170,000. So I wanted, frankly, to see firsthand what was going on. So I went to McAllen, Texas a few months ago, which is sort of the epicenter of what's happening. And I'll tell you, I was both outraged and heartbroken. Outraged for this horrible policy that changed when President Biden came in and issued executive orders that fundamentally changed our immigration policy. Outraged for these horrible policies, and also heartbroken for these kids. So we have all of these children, unaccompanied minors, that are coming across the border. Many of them are coming all the way up from Guatemala, Nicaragua, through Mexico. Understand that to cross the border from the Mexican side, no one crosses the border without paying off the cartel. And that cost is anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 per crossing. So you do the math, when you have 170,000 crossings a month, the Mexican cartels are literally making hundreds of millions of dollars at the expense of these innocent kids. Meanwhile, while our Border Patrol is distracted and overrun, other parts of the border, they're getting fentanyl through. Not to mention, we know we have known terrorists from Yemen and other countries that are getting through, and it's a complete debacle. And the Biden administration refuses to consider the problem, refuses to go there and really do anything about it. And it's infuriating and criminal in my mind. So appreciate the question. Not nearly enough being done. We've introduced legislation. We've been on television talking about this, spoken out on the House floor multiple times, and it's very, very frustrating to me. Again, if you want to ask me a question about what's going on in D.C., press *3 now. To receive our newsletter upgrade, hit *6. And next up, we have a phone call. We have Richard calling in from Dodge City. How are you tonight, Richard?
I'm doing great, Congressman, and I appreciate
good
the work that you're doing
from you.
For us in Washington, D.C., and your care and concern for all the constituents in Kansas. My concern and my question is, we recently held 2 gubernatorial races, one in Virginia and one in New Jersey. And it looks like there may be a shift in political climate in Congress, perhaps, where the gavel may be turned over from the Democrats to the Republicans. And I would like to get your opinion on the 2022 midterms to find out just what your thoughts and perspective, knowing that you participate in statewide elections as lieutenant governor, as well as United States congressman, knowing you probably a little bit more political savvy than some of your colleagues based on your political background. Give me your thoughts on where you see the 2022 elections going.
Yeah, Richard, great question, and so I appreciate the question. It's nothing's guaranteed. The 2022 election, is a little less than a year away. Every indication is that the country is very frustrated with a Democrat-controlled Congress, and that it will flip to Republican control. So, just to give you a sense, going into the last election, so a year ago, everyone thought Republicans would lose 10, 15 seats. We actually gained 25 seats. So the Congress actually shifted to the right, which means out of 435 members, it's a 5 to 7 vote margin. And so going a year from now, given the mood of the country, given a lot of these big government socialist policies that are unpopular, and given redistricting, given that typically when you have a new president, the other party picks up on average 20 to 30 seats, all signs would say that the House would flip to Republican control next year. Now, nothing's guaranteed. It's hard to tell. So that's the climate. I think for Republicans, that's a good thing in the House. In the Senate, good climate, but not as good a map. Because in the Senate, you have 100 senators, 6-year terms, so only a third of them come up every year. Certainly the Senate could also flip, but I think high likelihood the House flips as well, but we will see. So question, and that's how we see it as of right now. You would think, given the results of the Virginia-New Jersey election 2 weeks ago, that the Democrat leadership in the House would moderate and move to the middle, but it's actually the opposite, where since then they are trying to jam through some of the largest, most socialist policies in the history of the country, which I think will be to their political detriment at the ballot box here next November. So thanks for the question. We got a second poll question. The question is this: what do you think is the biggest obstacle facing military veterans when transitioning into civilian career? What's the biggest obstacle that faces our veterans transitioning into civilian career? Number one, lifestyle changes. Things like relocation, take-home pay, healthcare options, et cetera. That's number one. Number two, workplace cultural differences. Number three, education and training. And number four, emotional and mental health. So again, the biggest obstacle you think facing military veterans when transitioning into civilian career: one, lifestyle changes; two, workplace and cultural differences; three, education and training; four, emotional and mental health. So press 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we'll have the results of the poll here a little bit. So again, if you want to ask me a question at any time about what's happening in DC or how we can be of service, hit *3. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, hit *6. We can get your information and your email address, and then you'll rejoin the call. So next up, we have Clark, who is joining, or actually had a question on our website. Clark is from Phillipsburg, up in Phillips County. Wasn't able to listen to the Clark was not able to listen to the House Ag Livestock hearing. Can he get an update? So appreciate the question. We had a livestock hearing here We've had several of them. So I'm on the Livestock and Foreign Market Subcommittee. We actually had a hearing about that today. We also had a full committee hearing talking about livestock markets here a month or so ago. A lot's happening in cattle markets. Certainly, there's efforts to add transparency to the market. A lot of concerns with the lack of, to make sure that we have adequate price discovery that's occurring. There's a handful of bills that are out there. Some of them are certainly better than others. I think we've got to be careful that the government doesn't over intervene in the free market, and that we don't punish producers, who have made positive progress on improving the product. I would submit, and by the way, we're the #1 beef producing district in the country. So we make great beef in the Big First. It's a product that Americans all over the country love to eat, and we got to make sure that we continue to have a system where producers are rewarded for their excellent product. At the same time, we got to make sure that markets are working. A big concern I have, Clark, and that no one's talking about enough yet, is with these vaccine mandates for USDA employees. Remember that our packing plants all have to have USDA inspectors to operate. And if we have significant number of retirements or people that leave those line inspection services because of these forced vaccine mandates, I'm very concerned with how it's going to decrease our packing capacity and will further mess up our supply chain. So appreciate the question, Clark, and that's the latest. So again, Trace Man for the Big First. Hit *3 now to ask any question. We have about 15 minutes left, and if you want to get in the queue, I'm happy to answer your question here by hitting *3. Next up, we have Bruce, who reached out via Facebook. Bruce asks, "What's the update on the COVID vaccine mandates?" Appreciate the question, Bruce. And I actually was on the floor of the House about 30 minutes ago. Well, about 15 minutes before this call, speaking out against these vaccine mandates. I strongly oppose COVID vaccine mandates. I just think that it's the role of the government. They provided a vaccine. The government's providing information about the vaccine. And now it's time for free Americans to decide if getting the vaccine's right for them and their family. But the federal government has no business mandating vaccines. It's absolutely wrong and is an encroachment on our basic freedoms. So there's actually a lot of different mandates. You have the federal government, the federal employee mandates. You have mandates that hit healthcare workers, long-term care facilities. And so that's a series of mandates. You have mandates that impact private employers that have federal contracts. You also have mandates. The most recent one that's very unpopular is these mandates that require employers that have 100 employees or greater to force their employees to get vaccinated, which is just absolutely flat wrong. So I strongly oppose these. I've spoken out on the House floor about them, spoken out in committee about them, introduced legislation, co-sponsored legislation. I've been very outspoken about these, wrote letters to the Biden administration on how wrong they are. There's some positive news. The mandatory employer mandate. So if you're a private employer that have 100 employees or more, that mandate, the specifics of it rolled out week before last. It was immediately objected to in court, and the 5th District Court of Appeals issued a stay, which means the court has not said yet it's unconstitutional, but they have a lot of concerns about it, so they press pause. And today, OSHA announced that they are also not enforcing that mandate. What will end up happening is that will end up going to be heard in front of the Court of Appeals or a circuit court. Not sure which one yet. Probably will go all the way to the Supreme Court. Hopefully they deem it unconstitutional. A lot of these other mandates we are trying to fight in courts, and hopefully they're going to overturn. We will see. Strongly disagree with these vaccine mandates and appreciate the question. We have the results of our poll. So again, what do you think is the biggest obstacle facing military veterans when transitioning to civilian career? The #1, 42%, so almost half. #1 was emotional and mental health. So that's great feedback. So emotional and mental health was #1. 2, at 26% was workplace cultural differences. 21% was lifestyle changes. And in 4th place, at 11% was education and training. So thank you for responding to the poll. That's great feedback for us, and appreciate you taking time to do that. Next up, we have Noah. Reached out on the website from Scott City. Down in Scott City, the Beavers traditionally have fantastic football teams, and so I hope you're doing well, Noah. The question is, are you concerned with the debt? And the answer is absolutely. We are. I think when I look at America, 3 my three biggest concerns with how we're going to fare this century is the debt, China, and the drift we have made from our basic fundamental values of faith and freedom. Those three things, but the debt being one of them. We are $30 trillion in debt. If all of the spending goes through that President Biden's proposed at the start of the year, we would add another $6 trillion to the debt. So we have $36 trillion. Bottom line, that is just not sustainable. And we are kidding ourselves if we think that we can continue to rack up debt like this and us not have negative consequences to the economy, to inflation. We're seeing rampant inflation. Large part of that is all just government spending. That's not even counting the debt. And so very, very concerned about the debt. And like I said, in my view, one of the three biggest things facing the country. And will limit our ability to fund the military, will limit our ability to meet our promises to seniors. And very, very concerned about it. More reason that I'm strongly opposed to the Build Back Better, the BBB bill that will come up here probably later this week. So next up, just a little information on veteran casework. So one of the things our office does is we help veterans. So if you have any issue or concern, reach out to any of my offices, Manhattan, Dodge City, Manhattan. Reach out to us online. Basically, and we've helped a lot of people so far this year, scores of veterans. We've helped with things like making appointments at the Robert Dole VA Medical Center, arrangements for transportation for veterans who live in Southwest Kansas to get there. We've helped veterans checking on status of pending disability applications. We've helped other veterans resolve medical bill payments through TRICARE issues there. We've assisted veterans in obtaining requested records from the National Archives and Record Administration. We know sometimes veterans need to pull that data, pull that information. We've helped veterans there. We've helped veterans with over 20 years of service in preparing for retirement by contacting and answering questions they had with the military pay and pensions and much, much more. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to any of my district offices if we can be of service to you. The phone number for Manhattan, by the way, to grab a pen, you can look up online, but I'll just give it to you. The phone number for our Manhattan office, 785-370-7277. Or our Dodge City office, 620-682-7340. So reach out to any time as we can be of service. Again, hit *3, about 10 minutes left. Hit *3 now with any questions, or hit *6 to be added to our newsletter. Next up, question on our website. Jordan from Hutch reached out. Question is, are you pro-life? And the answer, Jordan, I appreciate the question very, very much so. I think that life begins at conception. I think if we're not standing up for life as a nation, what are we doing? One of the many, many reasons that this Build Back Better bill, reconciliation, whatever you call it, is so bad is for decades, we've always had what's called the Hyde Amendment, which means, whether, you're for abortion, against abortion, I'm strongly against abortion for any reason at any time. But for decades, it's been the policy of the country that we would not have taxpayer dollars go towards funding abortions. This year, when they released the budget and these spending bills, they omitted or they did not include the Hyde Amendment. And that is absolutely appalling to me. We have spoken out on the House floor, signed legislation, been very, very outspoken about this horrible change in direction that frankly is out of step with the majority of Americans. I'm strongly opposed to. So very, very pro-life and appreciate the question. Next up, we have Jimmy reaching out from McPherson. Question about the stepped-up basis. So and reached out via the website. Appreciate the question. So in these spending bills, one of the big questions is how are we going to pay for them? And the answer is we're not fully paying for any of them. That's why we're adding to the debt. One of the ways offered up to potentially get some more federal tax dollars is to do away with a stepped-up basis, which absolutely devastating for agriculture, devastating for our small businesses. Currently, the ability to pass land from one generation to the next, most of the time tax-free, or at least with a stepped-up in basis, is a big, big, big deal. I've introduced legislation and at the Ag Committee to make sure we would keep stepped-up basis. We've been very, very active on this issue. It's very important. The good news is, as it sits right now today, the current framework preserves the stepped-up basis. So what the House is now considering, the parts of that would do away with the stepped-up basis have been taken out of the bill. So the current framework that include changes to the stepped-up basis, which is a good thing. Now, we are watching that very closely. We've even drafted an amendment already prepared to amend the bill on the floor to preserve the stepped-up basis if need be, if they try to add it in. But as of right now, it's pretty precarious, frankly. But as of right now, it's good news that there are no changes to the stepped-up basis, which is really, really important for the big fur. So appreciate the question. We have a lot of calls about casework tonight. So glad that you've been here. Our office will reach out and be in touch with you this week if you've reached out or if you have any questions regarding benefits or if there's any casework or things that we can do from that regard. So next up, I think we're going to wrap up. So, thanks for joining. I know, it's Veterans Day last week, really this whole month celebrating veterans. And frankly, year round, we celebrate veterans in our office. If you're a veteran, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service to the country. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have the freedoms that we have. Really grateful. Let us know we can be helpful and appreciate, we have so many, I won the lottery when I get to represent the best district in the country. And really appreciate the basic values that our Big First has, and all of your help and support. People reach out all the time, saying they're praying for us, praying for the team, praying for Audrey and the kids in Salina. Really, really grateful for that. Know again that if you or a loved one is a veteran and you're struggling, if you're in a tough spot mentally, have some bad dark thoughts, just know that you're not alone. The Veterans Crisis Hotline is open 24/7. So grab a pen. I'll give you the number, the Veterans Crisis Hotline. Write this down. Use it if you need it. Give it to a friend, someone you served with if you feel like they need it. 1-800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or text 838-255. So just send a quick text, reach out, raise your hand and say, hey, I need help. 838-255. Online, you can go to veteranscrisisline.net/chat. So veteranscrisisline.net/chat. And thanks y'all for joining. Let us know we can be helpful. Have a happy Thanksgiving next week, everybody. And God bless the country and God bless Kansas. Thanks a lot.